So this episode is weird if you're like a hardcore fan of One Punch Man. I don't mean like the animation and the pacing. That's like part of the course of this season. I more so mean like the continuity, and it doesn't really matter to like the casuals out there. And for you guys, I won't bore you with this stuff. I'll talk about that at the end of the video because most of you will be gone by that time anyway. So we see Child Emperor trying to evacuate Waganma to the surface. And as they're leaving, they come across Phoenix Man's corpse, or perceived corpse. And Waganma recognizes him from like this TV show because he did mention that he was something of a mascot or something. And on that show, he was like a character that would just like comically die, but then come back in the next episode like nothing happened. And that worries Child Emperor because costume monsters are kind of like an anomaly. They don't really get too much into it, but he's definitely aware of how they can be anomalies because they take on the traits of like the costume that monsterize them. And with Phoenix Man's case, we see that yes, he literally does take on the trait of resurrection from the character of Dokkan Bird, or Dopey Bird, or Bird Brain. I'll just go with Donkon Bird because that's what they call him in this episode. And that is like a crazy broken ability in the One Punch Man world because as Phoenix Man resurrects into his new form, he says, Giro once told me that you must overcome a hell that pushes you to death's edge. That is the secret to a monster's explosive growth. And that's true because that's what Giro told Garo earlier in this season. And that's how Garo became as strong as he became. But he had to do that the old-fashioned way. Yes, Phoenix Man is technically dying here, but he has like this built-in ability that's going to resurrect him. And as we see throughout this episode, that can be abused. Kind of like in a video game, like you can farm this ability and just keep power leveling that way, as he does. But the first instance of this is so significant that he goes from demon level, you know, his original Phoenix Man form, to straight up dragon level in his resurrected form. And it immediately shows us the difference in power other than just straight up saying dragon by Phoenix Man blowing through Child Emperor's irritating shield because it repelled him originally in the previous episode, but this time he's not only going through one, but he's going through multiple quite easily. And Child Emperor is immediately realizing like, oh my god, this guy's really powerful, way powerful than I thought he was going to be. And he starts getting upset because he has to use like his ultimate attack on him. And he says like, you're not even one of the top guys. And that is true. Yes, he is dragon level, but he's not considered like a cadre or an executive of the Monster Association. They don't even say that word, I think, in this season. I think when Sludge Jellyfish was talking about them, I think in episode 3, he just called them the top monsters or the top guys of the Monster Association. But they're like referred to as the cadres or the executives. However, the Phoenix Man that we see at the end of this episode, which of course we're going to get into, he would probably be cadre level, I'm guessing. But this form more so like a pseudo cadre, the way that the ninjas were in the previous episode. Hey, also guys, we are almost at 300k. We're like less than 1,000 away. If you could just subscribe, that would be incredible. And also if you could like the video, if we could try to get 3,000 likes, that would be incredible as well. Thank you guys, I really appreciate it. But anyway, back to Child Emperor using his ultimate attack. So this is like his big trump card, and it's a freaking Gundam, Brave Giant. He summons through like these drills that he had preemptively planted inside of the Monster Association. And it's pretty powerful. I mean, it's implied to be dragon level in itself, right? I mean, if it's taking on and pushing a dragon. However, it has like a very strict time limit of about 3 minutes. And as he's fighting Phoenix Man, we see that Phoenix Man has multiple modes within this new form. He has like the Hawk mode, which makes him faster and more variable, but then he also has like Prominence Hawk mode, which I guess makes him physically stronger, but also allows him to like absorb energy attacks. But throughout this fight, Child Emperor is kind of just luring Phoenix Man into this trap where he's getting stuck on this like sigil, kind of. This is like the evolved form of what he was using to protect himself originally with those irritating shields. This is the irritating electromagnetic shield, which is 100 times stronger than the original one. And he tries to hit him with like this huge, as he says, giant fish strike. Child Emperor is very literal with his attack moves here. And Phoenix Man can somewhat mount an offense against this to, I guess, mitigate the damage, but he's still getting hit by this hard. And it's sending him through multiple levels of the Monster Association. And it straight up kills him. Like, again, he gets killed by this. It's so powerful. And as they're going down levels, Child Emperor sees that he's coming closer to Flashy Flash's signal. And this is because Flashy Flash lost his transmitter in the previous episode in the fight against the ninjas. Like, it fell into the ravine. And he assumes that Flashy Flash is going to be down there. And it also makes you wonder, like, wow, if Flashy Flash was down there, this would have been a much easier fight because Child Emperor and Flashy Flash teaming up to take on Phoenix Man, they would have absolutely destroyed him. Like, yes, he could resurrect, but I'm sure Flashy Flash would have figured out some way to take him out before that could happen. Like, I wonder what would happen if you just decapitated him. Like, would the costume still work? But of course, he finds out that Flashy Flash isn't down there, and he assumes the worst. I mean, as you would. But then we actually see what Flashy Flash is doing, and he's kind of just aimlessly going around the Monster Association because it's kind of like a maze. And he just lets the drop of his sword decide which direction that he's going. So as we said, that giant fish strike has killed Phoenix Man again. However, once again, he is resurrecting, and once again, he has evolved. But this time, he is Phoenix Brilliant Eagle mode. So if he was dragon level in his regular resurrected mode, he is now maybe even mid-dragon, possibly even high. It really remains to be seen, but I won't really get into the weeds of that stuff. It doesn't really matter. He's just a stronger dragon. And as I was saying earlier, this version of Phoenix Man probably would be a top guy in the Monster Association or a cadre or an executive. So he just instantly rips off Brave Giant's arm, showing how ridiculously strong he is right now. Not only that, but he also has some more abilities, such as the Light of the New King's Awakening, where he can just straight up resurrect corpses, which is wild. We've never seen this before from anyone in the series. And he doesn't even really know how it works. He says that his suit is talking to him, which is fascinating. I could get more into that, but again, it doesn't really matter. We also haven't even really been introduced to the concept that would allow me to explain how the suit could be talking to him. So that in itself is somewhat of a spoiler. But the other fascinating thing about this sequence is the monsters that he's resurrecting down here are the friggin' Subterraneans. If you go back to episode 1, you remember that iconic dream sequence with Saitama where he fights against those subterranean monsters or the people or whatever, where they're actually giving him like a real fight. But then of course he wakes up and he sees that the real Subterraneans are just weaklings. These are the weaklings. It turns out that they're coming to the surface in that sequence because the Monster Association has driven them out. They've taken over this place. That's why it's all furnished and set up the way that this is. It originally belonged to them. This is mildly hinted at in the previous episode with Hellfire and Gale saying that they took over that place from the previous monsters, but if you're just a casual, you don't really know what they're saying. You just assume, oh, they took it over from other monsters in the Monster Association, but no, they took it over from the friggin' Subterraneans. So they're getting resurrected here as like somewhat strong zombies to take on Child Emperor, but they're not really doing much. So Phoenix Man does something of a smart move and also a dumb move. Smart move because he's trying to recapture Waganma, as he should, but dumb move because he's leaving Child Emperor behind, who he knows is on a very strict time limit with his power. So I guess he just assumed, like, in a James Bond scenario, things are just going to work out for him. So Child Emperor, who's doing the smart thing, makes his arm go back into the drill mode, because that's originally how it got to him. It drills Phoenix Man, then Child Emperor, with like 15 seconds left, activates his Gigafold Smash, this big electrical discharge, takes care of all the subterranean zombies, then shoots up to Phoenix Man, uses his little brave support robots to give him his substitute arm, and then like straight up does essentially a Kamehameha, the Millennium Emperor Nova. And Phoenix Man assumes that he's going to be able to absorb this because he has all of the abilities from his previous suits all in just one form now. But this thing is way bigger than he expected. I don't know where Child Emperor is getting this insane power source from, especially with only 10 seconds left of the source of it, which he says is like his hyper degenerate battery, which I guess has to be minimum nuclear or something. And he blows this massive beam through him, through the Monster Association. It comes out through the surface, goes through Z City, which is abandoned, so you don't have to worry about people dying. And it just goes into the sky. This is easily, at this point in the series, one of the strongest things we have ever seen. Also in this sequence, you're supposed to see the moon on the side there, with the crater in it, with Saitama being kicked there by Boros. I don't know why they removed it. It is symbolic, although it hasn't really been established yet why it's symbolic. I guess they just don't care. there, which is understandable. But Phoenix Man survives this too, because he's just such a beast. Yes, it kind of overloaded him and it fried like half of his suit, but he's still alive. And Child Emperor's Brave Giant is done at this point, and he starts walking him down, thinking that he's just going to easily take care of him. But in one last ditch effort, Child Emperor like activates this like clamping mode thing, and as Phoenix Man is inside the suit, Child Emperor slips in this little tickle robot through the gap in his mouth, and it gets under his suit and it starts tickling him to the point of insanity. This is how he defeats Phoenix Man, which is funny, of course, but it does make sense because this is essentially the only way that you can defeat him without just vaporizing him or testing decapitation, I guess. You have to get the suit off of him. So how are you going to get the suit off of him? You have to give him incentive to take it off. Put something underneath it so that he can't get to it other than him ripping the suit off manually. And as he starts ripping the suit off, it depowers him and it brings him back to his previous mode where he's vulnerable, and Child Emperor just starts manually hacking away at him with his backpack of goodies, and he just straight up kills him that way. Now, in another surprise sequence here, we're seeing that Hellfire and Gale, the two ninjas that fought Flashy Flash in the previous episode, are alive. So it's not really explained in this episode how they are alive. It is very much explained in the manga, but I'll just say that they were essentially resurrected by Phoenix Man's King's Awakening Light ability. You know, the same thing that he used to bring back the Subterraneans, because their corpses were down there. They were killed there, you know, in the previous episode against Flashy Flash. So they were brought back in that zombie mode, but then when Child Emperor did his Gigavolt Smash, he just straight up Frankenstein them back to life. So that is essentially the equation to like a full-blown, no strings attached resurrection in One Punch Man. And this goes back to what I was saying in the previous episode's breakdown, and it was like you're supposed to feel bad for them. It is because they're coming back to life. And they wind up running into Saitama and they're naked, which is adding another layer to this. And they immediately try to attack Saitama because that's what ninjas do. And of course, Saitama's them. And they wind up having a very similar sequence that Sonic had with Saitama, because they're all coming from the same ninja village, which is, you read our moves, unforgivable. Normally, we wouldn't let you live, but we have a prior engagement to kill somebody. We'll save you for later. And they dip out of there. So why are they back? Where are they going? Well, I mean, I guess they're going to go try to find Flashy Flash again, but it's like, why are they back to life? And you're not really going to know until season 5, if we get season 5. So look out for that. But as for Saitama, as we saw, he's just aimlessly going around the Monster Association, just the same way that Flashy Flash is. Saitama is essentially just looking for the source of the noise from the earthquakes that, you know, rattled Z City when he was just chilling there. He doesn't really have a big motivation the way that the other S-Class heroes do, but he's eventually going to come across a motivation real soon. So as we come into the final sequence here, Phoenix Man, of course, has been defeated by Child Emperor. He's very likely to be dead. I mean, he doesn't have the suit anymore, and he's foaming from the mouth. And Child Emperor winds up asking Waganma, by the way, was there anyone else that was held captive down here? And of course, it was Tario, as Waganma knows, but he winds up lying to Child Emperor because, you know, Waganma sucks. And he's also scared. Like, he just wants to get out of there. He doesn't want to have to go back into the Monster Association and try to save Tario. Not saying that he's justified, of course, but this is why he is the way that he is. Also, the only person that responds to Child Emperor's request on the transmitters is actually Zombie Man, who's like, hey, thanks, Child Emperor, you know, you really helped us out. And it's Zombie Man because we're gonna see him fight in the next episode. Like, finally, Zombie Man's actually gonna do something for once other than just talk and walk around. So now let's just quickly talk about the continuity of this. So this is like the first and second iteration of what this fight originally was in the manga. We all really enjoyed this when it was coming out because we all thought Brilliant Eagle Phoenix Man is awesome. His design's awesome, his abilities are really cool, but he was also just a little too powerful. And I don't know if that is the exact reason why this sequence was retconned in the manga, but this sequence essentially was just wiped out of existence. It was replaced with a new sequence where this version of Phoenix Man doesn't exist anymore. Phoenix Man never becomes this in what the true continuity is. Like what actually winds up getting printed in the volume itself. And there's also like a whole other sequence that includes Saitama in this fight, but that's all removed now. So I'm just really confused as to why they decided to do this. I guess because one, this fight is way more exciting than the new canon version. And I guess this also means that they just won't have to adapt more content into these next 2 episodes, because I'm assuming there's only going to be 12 episodes in this season. Now, I am going to make a follow-up video next week, or this upcoming week, about what the real fight is between Phoenix Man and Child Emperor and how Saitama fits into that. So look out for that. And if you guys liked the video, please give it a like and let me know what you thought about all this in the comments. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.